Okay. Great. We are going to get started. I know people will continue to join, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jen Zettel Vanden Hooten. I'm the Northeast Wisconsin editor for Wisconsin Watch. For those unfamiliar, we're an independent, nonpartisan, and nonprofit newsroom. Our mission is to use journalism to make Wisconsin communities strong, informed, and connected. We were founded as an investigative news outlet, but we do more than uncover problems. We report on solutions to issues facing Wisconsin residents. Miranda Dunlap, who's going to moderate today's event, reported on solutions to the 911 dispatcher shortage in the fall, and her reporting is an example of that kind of solutions reporting. And just a quick plug, we're powered by contributions from people who value high quality, fact-based information. If you're able, please support our work with a donation. I'll drop a link in the chat in just a minute. A note about the ground rules for this event, we generally want to maximize engagement. In this case, we'll use the Q&A feature to interact with you, but questions and comments will be moderated. And we'll also send an email after an event with a link to the recording and to a brief survey. With that, I'll turn things over to Miranda. She has been our Northeast Wisconsin Pathways to Success reporter since June 2025. Her beat focuses on the ways Wisconsinites find family-sustaining careers. Prior to joining Wisconsin Watch, Miranda spent 2 years covering K-12 education and community colleges for Houston Landing. Miranda?
Awesome. I apologize because the practice tornado sirens are now going off. We chose perfect time. I want to get started by introducing our panelists. So first we have Billi Baneck, who is an emergency telecommunications instructor at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. And she also has an extensive background working in dispatch centers. We have Andrew Baus, who is an associate dean at Moraine Park Technical College, and he recently helped the college develop a new emergency dispatch certificate. And then we also have Gail Goodchild. She's the emergency preparedness director at Waukesha County. And Waukesha County has seen some success in reducing its shortage of dispatchers. And then we have Tamee Thom, who is the Emergency Communications Center Director for Chippewa County, and she also spent over 2 decades as a dispatcher. So we have a really healthy mix of different kinds of experience and people who are very familiar with this topic. Want to just set the scene a little bit so we're all on the same page about the problem that we're going to be talking about here and the solutions that we're talking about. So maybe I'll toss it over to Tamee to first. Can you tell me, are all Wisconsin 911 centers struggling to find and keep enough dispatchers? Is this a national problem? What is sort of the scope of the issue?
Yes. So first off, thanks for having me, letting me participate in your panel. Currently we have a critical nationwide shortage of 911 professionals. It's just not statewide, it's across the United States. We see it in rural and urban areas. It's, not a specific area that has a greater shortage than any other one. We see that shortage is driven by, it's a high stress career. It's high burnout. There's inadequate compensation, things like that that contribute to those shortages.
Generally, are there places that maybe sort of struggle more, like urban versus rural, or is it, like you said, pretty across the board?
From my experience, I would say it's across the board. When we talk as leaders in the 911, world, I think everybody is experiencing shortages. I mean, obviously there's some more than others, but I would say everybody shares that. So.
hmm Yeah, and most of us have probably never been inside of a 911 center, or, if we're lucky, maybe have never called 911. Gail, I have kind of a two-parter question for you. Can you help us picture what this work is like and what changes or what's at stake when there aren't enough dispatchers in the communication center?
Sure. Thank you, Miranda. So I have worked in both a single dispatch center and what we call a consolidated dispatch center. So single meaning that you're dispatching for one or potentially two entities, law enforcement and fire for one particular jurisdiction. And then here at Waukesha County Communications Center, we have what's called a consolidated dispatch center. So we have multiple agencies that we dispatch for. And I'm sure the folks that are in the field have heard this before, but when you've been to one dispatch center, you've been to one dispatch center, right? They're all a little bit different. But I'll describe what we do here at WCC, so you can kind of get a feel of what it's like to sit in that dispatcher seat. So we have 8 to 12 hour shifts, and if you think about it, the way that position works is you're tethered to a desk for that 8 to 12 hours. Now, some centers have like a wireless headset. They could walk around the room, but it's not like they can, run off to a restaurant for their lunch break. They really have to be available in that space for that 8 to 12 hours. So that's kind of one aspect of it. Here at our center, we cross-train everybody in both the call-taking position and the radio dispatching position. So when you come in, you're assigned to a different position, so you could kind of work the different roles every day. And it can go from 0 to 90 in seconds. That environment, you could walk in 1 minute and you're talking with your pod mate, and then the 911s are ringing off the hook for whether it be a car accident or, God forbid, an active shooter at the local school. So you have to be in that ready state, but also maintain that calm voice to be able to get information from your caller, potentially de-escalate them, and then provide them the tools so that they can maybe help themselves or the patient or whoever it might be that they're calling about. And then when you're doing that, you're multitasking. So you're putting notes into the call. You might be talking to somebody who's dispatching the law enforcement officer to provide additional instructions, or maybe you're looking at a mapping tool or an application to be able to better locate where your caller is, or looking at maybe where the reckless driver is going and turning, so you're following the route on the map. So you're multitasking, which can be extremely stressful as well. And then when you're done processing that call, the responders have got on scene, you're answering the next call. So you don't have time to decompress or process that call. And that's where we see a lot of the mental health stem from. Because of the stressful environment. And as a dispatcher, you don't hear the outcome. You don't have time to step out of the room to be able to process it. So we see, the mental health challenges with this nature of work. And then your second question is kind of what are the changes when there aren't enough dispatchers? So certainly increased workload, right? You just don't have enough people to spread out the work like you normally would. Breaks are really tight. It might be hard to get off the floor and take the breaks. And what we say, you're getting ordered to work extended shifts. We don't work any more than 12 hours here, if possible, at Waukesha County Communication Centers. But I know some dispatchers or dispatch centers, folks can work up to 16 hours. And then if you're getting ordered, maybe you have what we call an 8-hour turn. So you work your 8-hour shift or your 12-hour shift. You might have time to go home, maybe tuck in your kids at night. You're getting a couple hours of sleep, depending on, how long it takes you to get ready, pack your lunch, your drive time, then get back to work. That could be a cycle for your rotation on the shift. So that's where Tamee kind of talked about burnout. That's when you're short-staffed, people get burned out really quick. It's a stressful environment. You're processing a lot more calls, so it's a heavier workload. And then you're working potentially 12 or 16-hour shifts. It takes a strong leadership team to support the staff through that, and especially the mental health struggles.
Yeah, and so I want to turn to Billy Joe. I think hearing how stressful and heavy of a job this is, Billy Joe, you're dealing with people every day who are maybe potentially going to go into these careers and are learning how to do them. In your experience, what kinds of people are best suited or tend to want to go into these jobs?
I have this conversation with my students every class because I know that a lot of my students are either taking it as an extracurricular or extra credit they might need towards something else, and they're maybe going into law enforcement or police science, and they're not really intending to be a dispatcher, but I appreciate them wanting to know what happens in the dispatch world and what our job all entails, because it makes them better at their jobs in the future. But some people take my class just to kind of dabble it in, maybe I want to go into this, I'm not really sure, so I want to know what it's about. So I'm very transparent with them about the stress level and the commitment that it takes for time away from your family. This is a 24/7 operation. Just because you have something going on doesn't mean you can necessarily take off. And getting called in, like Gail says, for extra hours, or if there's an emergency event that requires extra staffing, those are all things that take a toll on you. And so I try to prepare my students for that as much as possible, but the basics, we look for people that are really good at multitasking. And I'm sorry, guys, but it's normally women that are just better multitaskers. We do have more and more men entering this career field, and they are doing well at it, but going in knowing that they are really going to have to work on their multitasking skills, and that's going to have to be a focus for them. People with great customer service background, you have to be able to have normal conversations with people. And when we're training new hires, sometimes that's one of the greater struggles. It's not so much the computer side of things. It's just talking to somebody. And it sounds like it should be super easy just to have a conversation like we're having right here. And it's so hard for people because they get inside their own head and they get nervous about what they should say and what they shouldn't say. And the more you can just relax and have a conversation. So people with customer service experience that are used to angry customers, angry shoppers, people that have been in the food service industry that are used to running back and forth, taking multiple orders and doing that multitasking, they do really well in this kind of job because they're used to that high pace, fast paced environment. But what I tell people to get through all of those stressors is you have to have a commitment and passion for really serving your community, that you have to understand the dedication that it's going to take. And if your heart's not in it, you're not in it. And so going into that job, know all the facts, know what you're getting into so that you are actually committing yourself 100%.
Now, kind of looking at once people are into this career, are there opportunities for advancement once someone is on the job and wants to, make more money or move up or take on more responsibility? What does that generally look like? I might turn that over to Tamee.
Sure. As Gail said earlier, every center is different. The structure is different. So it's really dependent on each center's available advancement opportunities. There's supervisory roles, which could include a senior dispatcher, a supervisor, a coordinator, an assistant writer, even then transitioning into a center manager or a director. But even without those promotional opportunities into a supervisory role, the line staff have a multitude of growth opportunities. They can become a field training officer, a validations officer, a TAC officer, or time agency coordinator, and they have an opportunity through national organizations, through APCO and NINA, which support 911 professionals to obtain additional certifications. There's online courses, there's in-person courses, things like that, so they can obtain those other certifications.
Got it. And Andrew, I know I mentioned this in the beginning, but you recently helped Moraine Park Technical College create this new emergency dispatch certificate, which is, students taking classes geared towards this career and receiving a certificate or an award for it. Can you give us some insight into what that certificate entails and when you were making it, when you were in the process of creating it, what were employers telling you about what students, how they should be prepared to work in these jobs?
Yeah, so our MPTC, the Emergency Dispatch Certificate, it's a short, focused program that prepares students for entry-level 911 communications, public safety dispatching. So students learn how to answer both emergency and non-emergency calls, gather information, and then determine what kind of response is needed. They learn some of the technology behind, modern dispatch centers. They spend time in a dispatch center, and talking to dispatchers. Things like the computer-aided dispatch systems, multi-line phone systems, and some of the documentation that comes along with it. Really focusing on, like Billy Joe had mentioned, the multitasking part of things, because as we get into in the second question, that's the big piece of it. So it's a certificate program. We have 3 classes that are built into it: fundamentals of communication, telecommunication, which is where they spend bulk of that time working and learning about dispatching, and then stress management being the 3rd class. And that's where we're really addressing a lot of the mental health and how to prepare them for the toll that it does take on any dispatcher. So during that telecommunications class is where we have a lot of that hands-on simulation work, managing different types of calls, real-time scenarios that we have built into the curriculum. And as far as so once they come out of it, they have a certificate. It's part of our criminal justice program. So as students work through their criminal justice program, it's an embedded certificate that they receive along the way, which I think has really opened up a lot of eyes as to, I was planning on going down this criminal justice road, but I really enjoy this dispatching area. So it gets a lot of our students in that field as well. As far as what the employers tell us they want to work with, what we should be working with students, obviously it's a lot of the soft skills that they've communicated that we need to continue to work on and work with students. They talk a lot about obviously staying calm under pressure. That comes with a lot of experience and practice. Communication, active listening skills, making sure that they're able to extract like accurate details quickly and then being able to relay that information to the responders, making sure that they're able to ask the right questions to get the right answers in a quick, timely manner. Multitasking is obviously a huge one. Using multiple screens, some of that computer literacy, decision making and problem solving on their own. Dispatchers obviously have to make rapid decisions with sometimes incomplete information. So being able to adapt to any situation that's coming at them. And then, like some others have said, that empathy, professionalism, attention to detail are really the big components that they're looking for nowadays from our area.
Thank you. And I do believe that Moraine Park and Northeast Wisconsin Technical College are the only 2 technical colleges in Wisconsin that offer these sort of certificate programs geared toward this career. So I am curious what the benefits are of getting this certificate or credential, and how it pays off for students down the road. Is it necessary for going into these jobs? Does it set them up for more money or growth? Maybe I'll toss it over to Andrew or Billy Joe or anyone who wants to jump in.
I can snag that one. I guess it's all agency specific on what the requirements are. Not every agency requires their dispatchers to be certified in what we call 40-hour basic. So when they go to the certificate program, what they're getting, at least from my end and NWTC, and Andrew, you can jump in if yours is different, but we use the International Academy of Emergency Dispatching. And it's not just a certificate program through NWTC, they're also getting an additional certificate from the Academy that certifies them as 40-hour basic telecommunicator. So a lot of agencies, they actually send their dispatchers through part of their training program to a 40-hour basic course, or they teach one in-house to get that same certification. Agencies like APCO and NENA offer something similar as well, and it's a standard just basic telecommunicator class. And if they're taking it through TC and they're getting that certificate ahead of time, it technically should save them a whole week's worth of training once they get hired on with an agency if they actually require the same certification. Now, a lot of agencies will, after you're done with your probationary period, there might be an increase in pay, whether it's minimal or a big jump. That's every agency specific, but it could help them reach that probationary clearance with all of the requirements a little bit sooner. I think overall, whether an agency requires them or not, and it's again agency specific on their requirements for their dispatchers, it's a good overview that if they're even considering it, and if they're going to dedicate the time to going through the training process, which is lengthy at any agency, this is a good way of knowing whether their heart's going to be in it or not, or whether they're going to be capable of doing it.
And I'll jump in a little bit and support what Billy Joe is saying, because we have an internal FTO program or training program. What we're seeing is that the turnover is so high with people that our trainers are getting burnt out, which is forcing additional people out the door. We started with the APCO program now, the 40-hour CTO course. I had a staff member that just started, had zero experience in emergency services, dispatch, anything like that. Kind of made her our guinea pig, so to speak, to see if this was beneficial or if it wasn't. And it was extremely beneficial for us. And like you said, giving that overview, knowing if this is something that she's really interested in, and then brought her into our in-house training program and kind of tweaked it to our center's standards and policies and procedures. So I would agree that I think it's a great asset, especially for people that don't have any experience. So
I just echo again, these are the same themes that we're seeing in our area as well. Our dispatchers are saying that to get them that kind of upfront experience to see if this is really for them or not, because they have expressed that they hire a lot of people and then they get into it and they realize, boy, I really didn't like it as much as I thought I would. This is hopefully preventing a lot of that turnover is what they're getting exposed to, as well as a little bit of experience up front.
I think they see what it's really like and not what it looks like on TV, because we all know it looks different on TV. And they come into our center and they experience some of this stuff or start going through these programs, and it's like, oh, this is really what it's all about. So.
Got it. Yeah, and as promised, we want to talk about, what can be done or what has been done to help alleviate these shortages. And I want to give, I think, each panelist the opportunity to answer this question. What do you think it will take to help fix this problem? Obviously, with the caveat, like Tamee said, if you've been in one dispatch center, you've been in one. But speaking from, each of your unique experiences, maybe we'll start with Andrew.
So my background is I worked as a full-time firefighter and paramedic for a number of years before I went into education. I think one of the things as I reflect on this question is, as I was growing up, I'm also third generation firefighter EMS. So growing up, the options were always fire or criminal justice. Like, it really never dawned that dispatching was right there with them. And it wasn't until I got in the field where I was like, oh, dispatching is a great profession too. That is something you can do. So from the education standpoint, or at least my strategies I'm working with developing this program, is kind of trying to push that forward to students. Like, it's not just fire EMS and it's not just criminal justice as a law enforcement, but there's dispatch up here. That's a great option for you as well. Make that a part of that conversation as protective services in general. So that's the first part, I guess, is what we're trying to do. And the second is really making sure that those students that are interested, we're getting them connected with the dispatchers in the dispatch centers so that they see what it's like to try to capture their attention, capture their interest, and get them into the field as soon as possible. I guess that's what I think as far as the education system can do from my standpoint as an associate dean. And I'm sure the instructors have their ways of doing it too. But that's one of the things I think we can do to help solve a little bit of the problem.
I'll support that, Andrew. I think a lot of I've seen a lot of my students that they don't even know that they can call into a sit-in. They don't know that they can call into a ride-along, that these are very welcomed opportunities that they have out there. Go sit in a call center and see what it's like. See if it excites you. See if you are even remotely interested in the career field by going to observe it first. There's a lot of careers out there that you don't get to do that. And I think it's a unique opportunity that we can offer people to learn a little bit about what the career is like and understand that this is a career. It is not just a temporary job until I find something better. If you're going to get into any kind of first responder world, you are there because you have a passion for it and because your heart's got to be all in to be able to work nights, holidays, weekends, round the clock, serving your community and really stressing that to our students before they jump in. That way, when they do get through their agency, they're committed to their training program. They're committed to succeeding in that. So hopefully it will lessen the turnover rather than just hiring people right off the street that have zero experience and zero idea what they're walking into. It doesn't always fare well.
I'll just add that I love that you guys have this offering at your local technical college, because just as you guys said, not many people know about this as a career field. I mean, you think about, I think about trick-or-treaters, they got the firefighter uniform or a police law enforcement uniform on. Nobody walks around with a headset and say, I'm going to be a dispatcher someday. So I love that you're kind of exposing the students to this career field.
Yeah, I would agree. We tried starting it here locally at CBTC. There just wasn't enough promotion of it, those kinds of things, and I think 911 professionals in general, like you said, there's not enough promotion of this as a career, even at high school job fairs, things like that. There's firefighters, there's cops, there's even we were just at a job fair. There's industry workers, there's all of this stuff, right? There's just not like, oh, hey, let's be a 911 dispatcher. And it's one of the probably, I've been here for a lot of years, but honestly and truthfully, the most rewarding career I've ever had. I still get to be involved and serve my community. I did the hands-on EMT stuff, and I'm over that. That train is done. That's at the station, but I don't know what else I would do if I wasn't a 911 dispatcher. I don't know what career field I would choose. So.
I agree, Tamee, and I am a prime example who's someone who has tried this. I tried to leave, and it doesn't go away. I went into events, and I was working and doing weddings, which you wouldn't think correlates, but it does. And I came right back, and I kept teaching the whole time I was out of the public safety world, and I came right back to public safety because at the end of the day, it just consumes you. If you are invested in it, it does consume you, and it doesn't go away. You can't turn it off. You can't walk away from it. You can't turn your brain off to seeing all the things and operating a certain way.
Yeah, I did hear you were back, so welcome back.
I can't stay away.
I know. Vicious rumors, and I was like, well, she really is back, so good for you.
Here she is.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
So listening to you all, it sounds like, maybe there's some work to be done around the perception or the awareness of this career. And yeah, so what I want to move to Gail a little bit. Let's focus on Waukesha County. The county faced a significant shortage of emergency dispatchers a few years ago and was able to turn it around a little bit. What moves do you think have been the most fruitful for getting employees and keeping them?
Yeah. So I'll admit I've only been in my role as director for the last year. So as I talk through kind of some of the changes that have taken place, certainly we had a different director that helped kind of lead those efforts, Gary Bell, and our operations manager, Chris Becker. So they helped lead that change to get us to where we are now. So one of the things that they changed that I think has made the most impact and that we continue to do today is hiring for fit. We, in our mindset, we need to make sure that person has a good personality. They have positivity. They live by a strong set of values. We can teach them the skills, maybe not multitasking. That's a tough one to teach somebody, but they can answer the phones. We can teach customer service. We can teach them how to read a protocol. But if if they're coming in with a bad attitude, it really messes up the culture in that environment and adds to the stress. So on the front end, when we're interviewing folks, we have questions that really help us understand, again, what their personality is or how they're going to contribute to that culture. And that's really reap the most benefits in hiring and really sustaining that higher level of staff, because people have a less desirability to leave if they enjoy their work, right? They want to come and hang out with their coworkers. It's a more positive environment. So I would say that's kind of one of the biggest changes that we've seen the most return on. And to tie into that, the second one is culture. So yes, we need the people in the seats that are positive, but also making sure that they're supporting one another. We used to have folks that would, come do their job and know that the person next to them made an error and they would never say anything. And how horrible is that if that's a call for your loved one and they could have received better service, but because I'm maybe self-absorbed or have an ego, I'm not going to help my pod mate. That's not teamwork, right? So we look for those things from the leadership team and really emphasize that, hey, you guys need to work together in supporting one another, have that team atmosphere, because we're all here for the same mission. We're serving our community. We want the best outcome for them. So we really encourage that and kind of talk about teamwork on a very regular basis. Holding people accountable. We just did a values refresh and accountability came to the top, right? So if you are not being a team member, a team player, or maybe you're not following protocol, we're going to hold you accountable. Certainly, sometimes if there's errors that are made, it could be a learning lesson or an opportunity to kind of reflect on that and make changes. But you're going to be held accountable to that higher standard because we strive for excellence. And then part of that culture, as I moved into the director role, was important to me is supporting our staff by engaging them in the decision making. So they are the folks that are making our mission happen. They own a large piece of that pie. They're the ones out there answering the phone, not me. So if we're going to make changes, whether it be to our policies or we change something up on the floor, I'm going to go to them first and get their input because I want to make sure it's going to work for them. I'm not forcing change down from the top. And I want them to own what we do. And I think that starts at the leadership level and making sure that we're coming to them and understanding that what we're doing is supporting them. And then thirdly, this is something, again, that previous leadership did back in 2023. We did a compensation study to right size the pay for dispatchers to make sure that we were competitive in the market. So what we were seeing back in 21, 22, during the thick of it is that people were leaving for less stressful jobs. They were leaving for the 9-to-5 jobs. They were going into the private industry because they could get paid better to do less. So who wants to work at a 911 dispatch center where you're, high stress levels, you're in that fight and flight kind of mode for 12 hours straight when I can go work at the local utility company, make more money, and I can work 9-to-5. I could be home in the evenings with my kids. How do you compete with that? So the compensation study was really helpful for us. We had support from, our county exec and our board. So I think that added value in being able to recruit and really retain our staff.
And one more question before we jump into some of the many great questions that our audience has left for us. How's it going now, Gail? Is this like a ongoing effort or a problem that you were able to kind of, make those efforts and solve them? Or what does that look like for you guys moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing effort everywhere, right? So in the 19 years that I've been here, we've never had full staffing. So while we've made changes and we've seen improvements, we're still not at full staffing. We have to stay vigilant because we still have people leaving because maybe their life circumstances changed. They had a baby and they do want to be home in those evening hours. And that's not something that we can, stop from happening. And I encourage people, if that's better for for your life situation, then go do it. I don't want to force you to be here. But yes, I would say you have to continue to stay vigilant and identify those gaps and issues before they get to be bigger problems, and remain adaptable and meeting the needs of the center and certainly the communities that we serve.
Gail, I will applaud you, because I think a lot of, we can identify the problems in the centers. We can identify a lot of the stressors as reasons for turnover. But in my experience, having a good leadership team really will make a big difference in your agency. And you guys, all these things that you're listing off are because your leadership team has committed to making those things possible, which indicates a good leadership team out there serving their people.
Thank you, Billi. I really appreciate that. And I'll add one more comment, because it's kind of been a theme throughout this, is mental health, right? So that's been on the forefront of our focus these last few years, and bringing in tools that are available to our dispatchers, and connecting them with the resources, and making sure that it's not a stigma, right? In the first responder environment, nobody wants to talk about how they're going to see their therapist, because they want to uphold this vision of that they're this strong, unbreakable person that goes out and does a tough job. But that just creates a stigma, and really discourages people from getting the resources that they need. So we always keep that on the forefront as well.
Absolutely. So moving on to some of these audience questions. Thank you for everyone who's been submitting them throughout the presentation as well. Several people asked us about AI and what role AI could have or is having in mitigating problems caused by these shortages. If anyone has any insight, feel free to jump in.
I know I just spoke, but I can speak to this. We just recently implemented an AI call assistance solution that handles our non-emergency calls. I just want to be clear, because I know everybody's fear is that you're going to get an AI agent calling 911. That's not the case. So it handles our non-emergency calls. So, right, people calling in wondering what time the parade is, or how can they pay their parking ticket, those low priority events. I will say that how it's helped is, there's multiple facets to it. The first one is you're reducing the workload. So when my dispatchers have downtime, they can focus on reviewing policy, or maybe get caught up on some of their training materials, or maybe work with a coworker and doing case review, because we don't often get times to do those things to help improve our own skill set. So it's freeing up some of their time. And then secondly, when God forbid, if we ever get ourselves in a situation where we're short-staffed again, or we have, a big incident where we're fielding all these 911s and can't necessarily answer non-emergency calls as quickly as we'd like to, it provides us depth and capacity to handle those calls. So AI has been great for us. We implemented it. We started the implementation process back in November, and we went fully live with it in January. It takes time to kind of mature the system, but it's been extremely helpful for us here at our center.
And we don't currently use it here at Chippewa County, but I know that several others that I've talked to would echo, what you're saying, Gail. And I think the biggest thing, for what it is, gives our staff the time to deal with emergencies, which is what we're supposed to do, right? We're a public servant, and we're able to assist callers with non-emergent issues. What time does the parade start? Can you transfer me here? Can you transfer me there? Yeah, we can do all of that. But it usually happens in the middle of a bunch of 911 calls, and now you're trying to balance all of that, and it adds to that extra stress, which can be alleviated. And those calls can be dealt with after the fact, because they're non-emergent. So.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Gail, but the way I've explained it to people that have brought concerns to me about it is, it's not a replacement for your 911 dispatchers. It's a replacement for your calling tree that nobody wants to listen to anyways. And they always push 0 to skip through. And it's really I think it gets you to places faster because of it. From a training standpoint, we've been exploring more and more programs, and I got to meet Gail in person by doing so, and looking at more training opportunities and using AI to train our dispatchers so they can have more of that scenario role, because it's really hard to practice potential calls in a scenario situation when your trainer is sitting right next to you trying to act like they're in some kind of emergency when you know they're not because they're sitting right next to you. So AI has really helped create some opportunities for training, not just in potential new dispatchers, but in current dispatchers to really hone in their skills, and maybe they can work on some of those implemented procedures through an actual test call that they wouldn't otherwise get to do in a semi-live environment.
Yeah, and I'll say for our call assisted solution, every dispatch or the dispatchers still have to touch every single call that comes in. So it transcribes it. Our dispatcher reviews it, pulls out the pertinent information, then puts a CAD call up for whether it be, well, it's usually police because these are non-emergency calls. So yes, they have to touch every call. And then the second part of it is somebody used this analogy once, and it's really stuck with me that you're not going to send like a law enforcement tactical team to go get a kitten out of a tree, right? So you think about it, we train our 911 dispatchers at such a high level to provide CPR instructions, childbirth instructions, the de-escalating skills, the multitasking skills. Why are you having them focus on a caller that's calling in about when the fireworks are? They are better suited to use their skill set for that 911 call. So we're realigning essentially our resources for the right job, if you will. So that's kind of a good way to look at it, and something again that's stuck with me.
And Dryden, want to give you time to answer. I felt like you had started to say something, but we can move on if maybe everyone else. All right. So our next question from the audience is, what can lawmakers do to help ease the shortage? And is there any helpful legislation in the works?
So I can speak on that. I'm currently sorry, it sounds like I get tongue-tied. The president of the WIPSCOM board, which is the state, the APCO-NINA, the national organizations. It's our group for the state. We are currently and have been working with legislators trying to make a push for reclassification to get dispatchers reclassified as first responders, to have them included in the PTSD bill. It was just recently adopted for, firefighters, I believe in like emergency medical technicians, but dispatchers were not included in this round. But we are currently working with them. We have been, and we will continue to push for the well-being of our 911 professionals across the state. Basically it comes down to, we can push, and then it's really not, it's out of our hands as far as what legislation decides. But we will continue to be a thorn in their side as far as, speaking on behalf of our 911 professionals across the state.
For the person that asked that question, if you've never been in a dispatch center, I invite you to come plug in with me anytime you want. I've invited our county board members on numerous occasions. You can't make decisions on behalf of things you aren't familiar with. Come plug in. Just hear a little bit about what goes on in a 911 center and see what it's like, and understand a little bit more of the toll that it has on that person, on their mental health, on their decision making, and their stress levels.
Speaking of getting dispatchers reclassified, what opportunities would that open to them? Why is that something that is important?
I would say that for my staff, the other dispatchers that, other people that we've talked to as far as in the 911 world, there's financial compensation, there's more mental health opportunities, probably there's if you're a first responder, sometimes you can retire early, or earlier than us if you're not that protective service. So I just think that there's a difference between what we do every day and being a clerical worker. We are part of the emergency services world, and are honestly the first responder there. So I think just having that reclassification, I think it's better benefits, higher wages, things like that. So for me, I guess that's how I see it. But.
Got it. I know we talked quite a bit about mental health and the importance of making sure that everyone is keeping that front of mind with such a heavy job. What kind of proactive peer support or mental health resources have actually been effective? And which ones kind of seem to be just checking a box?
I know I'll let Gail take the peer support side of things because Waukesha has an amazing peer support program.
Yeah, so we originally partnered with Dane County for our peer support program. I think through COVID, we've lost that a little bit. So we're trying to rebuild our own peer support program in our dispatch center. So we have a core group of folks that are trained, and they're available really 24/7 around the clock to our dispatchers in the event, whether it's a difficult call or something going on in their home life that they just need somebody to talk to. It's that really peer-to-peer, somebody who understands. So it's certainly a good resource that people at our center have taken advantage of.
From the education side, one of the things that we focused on is, since I've started in this position, right, a lot of grant opportunities come our way, especially I oversee the fire and the EMS, criminal justice, and obviously the dispatch program as well. One of the things I've focused on is that any one of those activities or goals within those grants is to try to incorporate some type of mental health activity within those grants to better help support the students that are coming through. So whether it's any one of these protective service programs, focusing on more awareness as to the resources available to them in their select county. It's getting the information out. What tools do they have, excuse me, at their disposal once they get into the service. So as they're entering the profession, as they're going into these dispatch centers as a professional, they have some type of awareness of what's available to them, or at least what should be available to them to help, again, not only help themselves, but the people around them.
Andrew, I'm sure you have some of the similar curriculum that we do at TC, and I spend a whole chapter focusing on mental health and making sure you're taking care of yourself in this career field. And we work on different coping mechanisms that they can deal with at home, at work, if they need to step away for a little while to kind of regain their composure before they get back in there, because sometimes dispatchers don't have that opportunity to just check out and recompose. The phone's going to ring again. It's just a fact. And it's the nature of the beast. So we just jump back in there and get to it, and sometimes just push our feelings down to the bottom of the pit and save them for later. But making sure they're aware of peer support programs, of resources that are within their community, within their center. Unfortunately, there's becoming more and more resources. I just don't think there's a lot that are very first responder specific. So first responders struggling with finding with someone that can relate to what they do and really understand the commitment that they're giving to their community. And then there's a matter of just finding the means to pay for it sometimes to really get that kind of help. It's not always covered by your insurance. It's not covered by your work. That is the root of the problem some of the times. I created a whole nonprofit foundation around helping financially support those things because we saw it as a key piece that was missing. And so hopefully we can keep just pushing to get more mental health resources out there for first responders.
I think probably similar to myself, right? When you're going through your initial training in school, mental health was not talked about. It was a chapter that you covered and never talked about again. And I think it's important as we cover, we talk about, you had mentioned the importance of strong leadership and setting that example. But even for myself, getting out of those old habits, talking about it with the students, saying, yeah, this is what I've gone through. This is what maybe I should have done instead. I think is an important part of changing some of that culture that we're faced with. So along with all these great projects and funding and educating students, making sure that we're also the example of what good mental health should be, because as you said, and I think that's where some of that AI can maybe help in that mental health. You go from listening to the extreme worst call you're ever going to hear, or being on the worst call you ever hear, to my cat's stuck up in a tree, and going back and forth plays wear and tear on your mental health. So I think there's a lot of resources we could probably better be utilizing to help these responders out in that instance.
And I would agree. I think especially when you have veterans or long-term staff that have stuck around in the field and have experienced the ups, the downs, being honest and transparent, especially with the newer staff. Been there, I've been there, I've done it. This is what I've experienced. So I would agree 100%, Andrew, with that. I think letting them know that just because I'm their supervisor doesn't mean I'm not human. Doesn't mean I haven't felt what they felt, that they feel every day. And that I'll do my best, to help them through it, and to get to a point where they want to stick around too. So.
I have to say, I'm really intrigued, Billy Joe, about your nonprofit, so I may have to connect with you after this. That's awesome. We are fortunate here in Waukesha County, and I think they service more than Waukesha County, but we do have a mental health therapy group. They're called First Responder Psychological Services, and all of their staff have worked in public safety. So we contract with them, and they do a few things for us. So they come in for our new hires during their training and talk about stress management and some tools that they can use. They come in and we call them neck up checkups. So mandatory meetings where our staff have to meet with a therapist once or twice a year so they can start building those relationships and cut down on that stigma. And then thirdly, in addition to our county offers 8 free EAP sessions, they can get 4 free sessions with the FRPS program, which is fantastic because as what was said already, they feel that they can talk to people that understand the work that they do versus talking to a therapist through EAP, which nothing bad to say about therapists through EAP, but our staff don't always feel connected and that they fully understand what they're going through.
And I think we have to be more proactive than reactive. I think in the past we've been more reactive. When something happens, that's when we start to get the resources and get people the assistance they need. I think preparing them for it ahead of time, and being more proactive in that approach is going to save us a lot of staff in the long run.
I would have to agree. I think some people aren't always eager to reach out or they're embarrassed to reach out. I meet with my staff on a monthly basis and they have to come into my office, and whether they want to or not, they can come in here and tell me that they don't even want to talk to me, and that's fine. They can just sit here and stare at me for 15 minutes, but it's time off the floor that if they got something they want to talk about, that's their opportunity to check in, to see how they're doing. And it keeps me connected to every one of them. Now I'm at a smaller agency now, so I have the time and availability to do that and bounce around on my shifts to kind of check in with everybody. And not every agency is afforded the luxury that I have to be able to do that, which makes it their job even harder to keep tabs on their employees' mental health.
Switching gears a little bit, generally is a dispatch candidate required to live in the county or the town that they work in, or is this a sort of thing where maybe remote work could help fill some of these jobs? Is that being done?
I know during COVID, I was working with an agency that did offer a couple remote stations for call takers, and it had its challenges. And a lot of the times you can't possibly write a policy or procedure for every single call that will come into the center. There's a lot of teamwork involved in every unique situation, and have somebody so far away delays that response in making decisions because they don't have their team around them. So for it to be a work from home position, I wasn't the biggest fan personally, because I felt like you needed somebody who was very senior in the career and could make a lot of those decisions on their own, or quick access to somebody inside the center to help with some of those things. And they don't have the technology at home, so they're limited on what they can and can't do. So yeah, that's my personal experience on it, but
I would agree 100%. I think the collaboration is extremely important in our career. If it's a big situation, it's a hot call, it's whatever, it's all hands on deck. And I think if you're at home, you just don't have that. You don't have the opportunity to collaborate like that. And maybe, Gail, you talked a little bit earlier about holding each other accountable. Maybe throwing something out there that I didn't remember. Maybe somebody else is like, well, why don't we do this? Or did you think about this? I think you lose that when you have remote workers. I know it's convenient. I mean, for people, I think it's convenient. But I think as far as the profession, it's not. It's actually the opposite. So
I think it's good in emergency situations if you have a very high risk call or high priority call going on that you're getting inundated with phone calls, to call that person at home and be like, I need you to jump on your computer right now. It's great
Yeah.
to help alleviate some of the calls in those kind of situations. But for the big picture, not so much. And sorry, to go back to the question about, do you have to live in the community that you serve? I don't live in the county that I work in. How far do you want to commute is what it comes down to. I know there's certain teams that you can serve on in certain agencies where if you are going to be part of the rapid response team, you have to be so far away. But otherwise it comes down to, how far do you want to drive to work?
same for us. Same here. So
Yep, same in Waukesha County.
Got it. That makes sense. Gail, is the Waukesha County compensation study that you previously mentioned, is that available for public viewing? And if it is, maybe do you know where we could find that?
It's not readily available on our website. Like I said, that's something that had been done by our previous director, but I can certainly connect with our HR office, and I don't know is our contact information going to be shared out, or
We could plan to maybe you could pass it along to us and we can pass it along in the follow-up from the event. That might
okay.
be the
Yeah, I
easiest
can
way
share
to do
my
it.
yeah, I can share my contact information, and if that individual wants to reach out, I can certainly share some information about it.
Got it. We will make a note to do that. Our next audience question is for the tech college leaders on the panel. How do you see your role in encouraging graduates to stay in Wisconsin?
I think that how do we encourage them to stay in Wisconsin? I think that's connecting them to their community. I've been a very strong advocate for, and we've heard it from some of the other panel members. The point of this is you're working to serve a community. You're working to help the people around you, connecting them to what kind of role do you want to play as a citizen in your community, and that's really what we're trying to do, is connect them to those people in the community and show them how rewarding of a career is. We've talked a lot today about a lot of the barriers and a lot of things, and we have talked about like how great it is, but really showing them like this is a great profession to join into, like getting them connected with the members in the dispatch center and saying this is the team you can be part of. Like that's really the goal, and I think that's how we keep keep members in the state Wisconsin, in the community, in your local city, is showing them what a great opportunity that they have right in their back door, to do something great. And I think that's the goal of our strategy. How do we get people to serve in our local communities?
I would echo that. At the end of the day, everybody's personal circumstances are going to take them wherever they're going to take them. And if I can convince them to be a 911 dispatcher anywhere, great. But if I can keep them local, then I'm keeping good people local too.
And I know we talked a bit about Waukesha and how they're addressing this. Are there any other communities or counties in the state that come to mind as places that are paving the way and successfully tackling this problem?
I think Waukesha is the one that comes to mind, in my opinion, as one that I've heard a lot of and seen a lot of. Me personally, in my agency that I'm working for outside of NWTC, I'm putting a lot on myself to make those changes. Now, I'm in a leadership role. I'm a supervisor. I should be putting a lot on myself to change that culture, because if I'm not, then who's going to? And if I can start changing my culture by meeting with my people, listening to their concerns, being in the center to help them when calls are getting thick and even when they're not, I've made my office a mini sanctuary for them to take breaks and get outside of the center for them to take a little break that they normally wouldn't get because of short staffing. I'm doing what I can as a leader to promote their training. If they want to get certifications, there's different certifications they can get through some of our supporting agencies like APCO and NINA. If they want to get their RPL, if they have goals to work towards, I want to help them get there. I didn't grow up with that kind of leadership, so I wanted to demonstrate that kind of leadership, that I am here. I see my staff as almost like my children. I want them to grow up and be bigger and better than I ever was. And if I can help them get to those places, then I'm contributing to those good cultures that we want to start seeing more of.
Someone asked if these certificates for dispatching is offered at all technical colleges, and if there are online options for the ones that we've spoken about.
Our communications and stress management are online courses. Telecommunications is hybrid, meaning some of it you can do online, but then there are hands-on in-class components that need to be on campus for.
The certificate program that we do at NWTC is in person, mainly because of the couple of instructors that we have, myself being one of them. I don't like teaching online. I would prefer in person. There's so many things that I just can't really get across to them about the natures of the job in a Zoom call or online. It's, you really just got to be able to interact in person and do tabletop exercises and be able to really get your hands on in the job, and learning about the job. As far as their certificate programs go, like the additional certificates, if you wanted to get your 40-hour basic training course, you can go on to APCO, whether you would have to become a member to take those courses, or the academy. You could sign on and get those things individually. You could take those online, whether you're going to get the most out of it. If you don't have a background in the career, everybody's a little bit different, but it is an option.
Got it. And then another person asked about part-time jobs in dispatch centers, how dispatch centers use part-time staff to fill gaps, and is there anyone filling these part-time jobs with retirees, or yeah, is that happening at all to your guys' knowledge?
We are doing.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I can speak on that for our office here. I actually have both part-time and retirees that have come back. They might have different roles. Obviously, dispatch centers, depending on the agency, are responsible for the time system entries, things like that. I have people that just focus on just doing our validations, that kind of thing. So they're not answering calls on the floor, but they're taking pressures off of my staff from some of those administrative tasks that they could do in downtime. I have retirees that are coming back, and we're very involved in our training program before leaving. Doesn't want to talk to the public anymore or do any of that, but will come back and basically helping with the training program, training new staff, taking some of the pressure off of my FTOs, reducing that stressors for them. I do have people who were full-time, had life transitions, couldn't work overtime, couldn't work everything, so they went to a part-time. We created part-time positions. They work part-time hours. They're covering shifts on the floor, but they get to pick their hours. What's open, here's the open shifts. They get to pick what they want to work around their lifestyle. They're not forced to work overtime. They're not forced to work holidays, weekends. They work it by choice. They've gotten some incentives in that aspect, where if they're not part-time, but like a limited term employee, they can get double time if they work a holiday. My staff gets their regular holiday time, but to incentivize them to come in and cover for those full-time staff so they don't get forced, they get double time basically on a holiday. So just some of those work really well for us. They've saved us in a lot of situations, especially when we are extremely short-staffed. Without all of those people helping with all of those tasks, our ship could have sunk very easily. So I think the hybrid or the being very innovative with scheduling is where it's at these days. People are really looking for that work-life balance or having more of a life versus work balance. So I think any way that we can help add to that to push the life balance compared to the work balance, and keeping them happy, I think we're going to retain staff. So
we did the same thing. We have a lot of retirees and former employees that might have moved to different areas in the county even, that come back and help out all the time. And it saves a lot. And we do the same thing. We give them the list of available hours and pick your poisons and let me know what you want to take. You want to take, they do have a set minimum for the month, but they can take as much as they want.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's great. And I think having their experience, knowledge, personalities in the center is fantastic. I think it's especially to be there for our newer staff and help them make that transition, into this career. So.
Okay. I think one of our last questions will be, and this didn't come from me, so we must have, other journalist friends listening in. How can journalists better report on the ongoing dispatcher shortage? There's a lot of news coverage, as I'm sure you all know. So
I just think the interest, even, today, I mean, I know it personally, I appreciate that. We all know that, like we said, when you think of emergency services, you think of the little kids at Halloween with a firefighter or police officer costume, not someone wearing a headset. I think so. Anyone promoting our career, promoting our profession, as well as the benefits of it, right? We all talk about, we get bad calls, but Billy Joe's been around forever. Gail's been around forever. And Andrew, I apologize. I don't know how long you've been involved, but we've all been here forever. We obviously have a passion for serving our community and seeing the benefits of this career. And so I think anyone that can promote those things, because we can always look at the bad things and say the nights, the holidays, the weekends, all of that, right? But for me, I basically gained another family because sometimes we spend more time with those people than we do our own families, especially on those times, and those holidays, things like that. So not only being able to serve the citizens of the community, but to be able to gain another family is a bonus for me. So I think anybody that can promote that and report on that, I'm all for it. You can call me anytime.
I mean, aside from you calling me old, Tamee, I would agree.
I'm seasoned. You're not old. You're seasoned.
Seasoned. So since I'm so seasoned, I would agree, because I think a lot of the times when they hear about dispatcher shortages, the way it's perceived, if people don't take the time to actually read the article or listen to the news broadcast, they take it as a negative thing. And it's, oh my God, this agency is struggling, this agency is struggling. Yes, they are. And sometimes you see those headlines that say dispatch shortages killing morale or something along those lines. Is it? Yes. Is that fact? Definitely. But how can you turn it into promoting the job? How can you turn it into something positive to say, hey, there's a lot of good people still doing this job, and we want you to come join our team, that this is a viable option that a lot of people in the community don't even know is a viable career option for them.
Haven't ever worked in the dispatch center, but again, spent years and years on the ambulance, right? And I think that you're absolutely right. Like, there's a lot of issues, and challenges, right? But to really emphasize and publicize what is so great. We hear about the bad calls and stuff, but there are so many great calls that you get to be a part of. I mean, to be able to coach someone through giving birth, over the phone, like that. I mean, how awesome is that? Like, those are the great things that we should also be focusing on. All the great stuff that you get to do as part of it. And but like you said, this has been a great first, great step in the whole thing is having this conversation. So thank you.
And Andrew, if you could tell me what it feels like to coach someone through labor on the phone, I've been here for 28 years and never got to do that. One of my staff has done it 3 times. She's got 3 stork pins. I'm like, how does this work?
I don't I don't know how you do it just listening to it. They, I yeah, you have a whole different set of skills that I can only appreciate.
Yeah, and you think about how it's, when you're an EMT, you're there hands-on, right? You see what's happening, and yeah, that's scary enough, but now you're separated and it's in a vehicle on the side of the road, and you don't have all this stuff that you need, and to coach someone through that, I have a whole respect for people that can do that. So I've never gotten to do that. So
and that that's just one of the many even getting the cat out of the tree is can be a great feeling, getting someone's cat out of the tree. But it's all that stuff that is a great way to serve the
Agreed.
community.
Sometimes the cat in the tree is a breath of fresh air. If it was some of the stuff you deal with, you're like, yeah, I can help you with the cat.
It absolutely is. I can handle this one just fine.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap up right on time. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of your insight, personal anecdotes, advice. This was all very helpful. Just a reminder, all attendees will receive a follow-up email with a recording of the event and then a very brief feedback survey from us. So, yeah, thank you all. I hope that you all listening in found this helpful and learned something new.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for having us.
Thanks, Miranda.
All righty. I don't know if I'm the one who stops this or what we do. And this is all recorded, so everyone will get to watch that back. Great.
That's all great. It's all good. We got you. We're with you. We don't know what we're supposed
Done
to
if
do.